culture. I cut my way out podcast. Tune us in. We on the grind like I put the clippers in my hand. I got a whole different plan. I gotta see how this play out. Hoping that it pay out. Trying to cut my way out. Yeah, I put the clippers in my hand. I got a whole different plan. I gotta see how this play out. Hoping that it pay out. Trying to cut my way out. I used to dream as a kid on the porch of the crib and make it big. And one day
welcome back to the I Cut My Way Out podcast. Back again with another episode. I am at Kenneth Jinks, joined by my brother / friend / esteemed gracious co-host at A Knox the Barber Foe.
Absolutely.
And as you can see, we have company at I Create _ Confidence. We're gonna bring him in very shortly, but just want to attack some administrative duties. How you been? I know last week you was tackling COVID, but you back.
Absolutely, man. It's I'm happy to be back and feeling halfway decent.
You sound great. Yeah,
man. We were doing this last week, bro, and I was struggling. Man, it was rough. Like I said last week, man. People talk about the recovery rate, and it's the flu. It could be the flu if you want to, man. Firsthand account, man. I don't wish this on anyone. I'm not 100%. I would say I'm back at about 80, 85. Just catching your breath, just being winded. Man, it's been rough. So I'm happy to be back, and all glory to God.
Okay, yeah, and we was talking just briefly off wax with our guest at I Create Confidence, also known as Suge The Barber, Michigan's fine. You Detroit?
Yep, born and raised in Detroit. Yes, sir.
Detroit. So before we give you my co-host, he come with the fire bio before he get into that. The fire intro, I mean. So is the what up though? Is that really like that's the Detroit like?
That's Detroit, straight up. Like,
okay.
Other cities have tried to steal it and say it and put their own twist to it, but when you hear somebody from Detroit say what up though, you know it's a difference. Period.
I'm in this podcast space, I rock with Jalen and Jacoby, and every time he come in with the what up though, so he always keep it D. So, and it was another brother, a comedian that passed away that was real, that Lil Duval was tight with, and he every time he put him in his videos, he was I forget his name. I apologize for that, but yeah, we were just talking off wax, man, about the whole COVID, and so we was just talking briefly. So, take the intro away, and we can continue the conversation.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. For all you guys that are supporting, listening, we greatly appreciate it. The I Cut My Boy podcast, back at it again with another special guest, man. We, just happy and privileged, man. We knock him down, have a great guest, extremely talented guest. This brother is no different, straight out of the D. He goes by Suge The Barber. On Instagram, I Create Confidence. Going to get into that. This brother is an extraordinary, talented, gifted barber. He's also into the men's hair units. I looked on his bio. He's a frat fraternity brother. He's a Sigma, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? I got quite a few clients that are Sigmas. Man, they've been trying to recruit me in. Man, he's an all-around good brother, man, and we are so happy and excited to finally get him on. We've been talking and just trying to catch up and got a date set, and here it is. Suge Barber, definitely creating confidence. As we look up and down your page, man, you're getting it in, and we're so happy to have you on, my brother.
Yes, sir. I'm used to having effects, and now that we're doing Zoom, I got to figure out how I can get my effects. Normally, I add some hand claps, So when I drop the episode, Suge, I'm a put the effects in there on the back end. But nah, pleasure to have you, and just again thank you, and for just taking the time out of your Sunday afternoon. I know with barbers that that Sunday and that Monday are kind of sacred days. So just thank you.
No problem,
Yes,
man.
sir. Yes, sir. Man, we're privileged to have you on. Man, I'm excited. I'm ready to jump in. Got some questions. We've made it a point to make sure that we contact barbers, man, near and far. And so Detroit for me has always been that spot. Like when I think of Detroit, man, I think of drip. I think of style. You think of Motown, you think of hip hop, you think of basketball, just overall style. Flavor Gators. I actually have a cousin. I got a cousin, man. Yes, sir. I got a cousin, man. We're in Champaign, Illinois, but I have a cousin that ended up moving. Her mother moved from here and took her and her brother, and they were raised in the D. And she, I don't know if you guys may be familiar with the name. Her partner, husband, goes by the name of Strike Cash. She was actually in the 8 Mile movie. And so, they are big on the D. They currently live in Atlanta. But man, she's Detroit all day long. Remember my dad talking about, times of going to visit, because my cousins were there, and just talking about just the style and just the pizzazz that Detroit has. So it's always been a place that I would like to visit. I haven't had the chance, man. So as a barber, this is our barber platform, but just tell us a little bit about your upbringing, who Suge the Barber is, and just tell us about your upbringing with Detroit and how you became, introduced to the barbering industry, bro.
Well, born and raised in Detroit, on the east side, 48214 zip code to be exact. Sometimes you have to give like certain specifics because people will be like, "I'm from Detroit." You'd be like, "What part?" They'd be like, "Southfield." You'd be like, "That's not Detroit, but okay, that's cool." It's all good.
Now,
Michigan, Mitten Love.
Now Southfield is
It's
the
close.
well-to-do part, right?
Something like that. It was way more well-to-do in times past than it is now. Like definitely, and y'all have to excuse me. I'm trying to like get my lighting set up right. I'm sorry.
Oh man, do your thing.
No,
Do your thing.
In the past, it was like, yo, if you was talking to a chick from Southfield, it was like, man, I'm talking to this girl from Southfield, and you was like the man, because the Southfield chicks was just, they was the suburb girls, and we truly viewed Southfield as like the suburb, and it was for a long time. It was like one of the first cities. There we go. And then there was hallelujah. It was like one of the first cities where, so to speak, well-to-do Black people could go. Because if you know anything about the term like redlining and stuff like that,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They wouldn't let us move into a lot of these places. There were laws, literal laws on paper that said no Blacks in certain neighborhoods. So Southfield was one of those places where we could go. So Southfield was definitely viewed as like a well-to-do Black metropolis, so to speak. It was where, when there was an actual middle class, the middle class in Detroit was definitely, I would say, created by the auto industry.
Okay.
Yeah, so when he was making the intro, I was definitely going to talk about just how it's just so much like, the style, the music, plus the auto. So it's really blue collar. It's got the style. So I'm and I know we've gotten off, he asked you about Detroit.
We exactly where we want to be, right?
Oh yeah.
And then we talking about Southfield, but right. So,
as far as
just
my
continue.
Barbering, as far as the barbering portion,
but no, just the whole upbringing, your experience.
Yeah.
We want you to bring it to us. Let our listeners know.
Well, cool. I'll dive in a little bit.
Okay.
All right. I'll dive in a little bit. So yeah, it was like, back then, if we talking about anywhere from 1950 to almost 2000, a lot of black men and women would graduate from high school and go straight to the plant. You can go straight to Chrysler, Ford, GM, and that, the big three. And that was a job where you could start out at base level making good money. But if you was one of those people that was there for 20, 30 years, you were making a couple $100,000 a year or more with a high school diploma or GED, so to speak. So it was a sought after job. And then it got to a point where it was like, yo, everybody couldn't get a job at the plant. But that created the middle class. So when the bottom kind of fell out of the economy and the auto industry pretty much was on a string, a lot of people were forced into early retirement. A lot of people were just laid off. A lot of people just quit because they weren't given the hours. They were shutting down plants. And that kind of crippled the Detroit economy. You know what I mean? Like what happened, the run on banks and all of that stuff happened. What was that? 07, 08?
Yep.
When it hit the auto industry, that pretty much was synonymous with hitting black people.
Absolutely.
Because that crippled the dollars that we were able to put back into the community and whatnot. So, a lot of stuff went up for sale. Then the gentrification the second time around started, and a lot of people started buying up land for cheap. I can't really blame them for doing it. I can't blame them, but it was like, dang, you bought that land up, you took the jobs of the people who were there, and then you wouldn't give them jobs afterwards. That's like, I don't have a problem with gentrification personally. The problem I have is when you gentrify, you kick the people that were there out, and then you shut them out when you're bringing it back up. That's the part that I have a problem with.
And so ultimately, absolutely. And so ultimately, I look at that as being the definition of what gentrification is. And so for me, I do have a problem with it because I think that's the sole intent is to get the people out of there, to let our communities go downtrodden. You know what I mean? Take advantage of it when it's at its cheapest, build it back up, and put us somewhere else. It's interesting you talk about that because Jinx and I got a buddy, Jinx, Larry Simmons. When he lived in Detroit, he and a friend were looking at buying some property, getting into real estate. And we had a conversation one time, and he told me, he said, man, we were looking at getting a property for $5,000. And he's a church guy, always been rock solid growing up. But I almost thought he was lying, man, until I started watching some documentaries and things.
Yeah, man.
I'm like $5,000 for a property.
You could get something for less. I know people who have bought properties for $1,000, $2,500. Now, granted, I could go on my side of town where I grew up right now and probably buy a house for under 10 grand. Wow. Now, what I would have to put into that house to get it livable, that might be another story. But I've been studying the real estate game because one day I plan on being a connoisseur of properties. And like what a lot of people are doing now, especially on that side of town, east and west side, they're buying the property and they ain't even fixing it up. I heard Envy talk about this.
I was just gonna bring Envy.
Yeah, and I was mad. I was mad. I was like, are you serious? But it was like the people that were buying up the properties weren't from Detroit.
Yeah.
And
Angela. Yeah.
Yeah, people think that people from Detroit with money not trying to buy the properties. They are, and they're getting shut out. And it's like they're just getting a waiting game. They're getting I put in all the paperwork and they're not getting no reply. Then all of a sudden it gets listed as sold or pending or something like that. So Envy was like, man, I didn't do any rehab on any of the properties I bought. And now Angela, on the other hand, is different. She's rehabbed some stuff and fixed some stuff up and then sold it. But man, Envy was like, I came in years ago, bought a bunch of houses and buildings and sat on them until gentrification started. And I mean, that's a strategy too. Just sit on it if you can afford to pay it. Because the problem with some of the people in Detroit that are trying to buy, it's like, I got enough to buy this house, but what they may not have taken into consideration is as long as that house sits and you own it, you still got to pay property taxes.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason why I don't physically live in Detroit right now. I want to. Okay. But the property taxes it's just robbery. Property taxes and car insurance in the city.
Really?
Horrible. I mean, like I'll put it
Wow.
like this. Right now, me and my wife are paying car insurance wise, we're paying 300, like less than 350 for both of our cars, newer cars,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And for one of our cars, if we were in Detroit, it would be 400 or 500 with good driving records. It's roundable.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I was like, I'm just not willing. You'll get a nice big house for cheap, but it's like by the time you get done paying your property taxes and your car insurance for the year, I bought a house in the suburbs.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And it's like, it was like it wasn't conducive.
Wow.
You know, so I don't blame them for buying the properties, but it's like, man,
Right.
I don't know what it is about cities having something against their own, because I know it's not just Detroit.
Right.
I
Right.
know it's not just Detroit.
Happening all over the country, man.
Hmm.
Wow. So going through that, growing up in the D, you know, the plants, the big three, you know, automakers being the sought after jobs. Um, I know a lot of families probably, you know, push that lane because of the type of money, because the type of money you discussed, that type
Hmm.
of money is not being made even to this day with 4-year degrees, right? So
Exactly.
what was your turn and how were you introduced to the barbering industry and not, you know, kind of pushed in that
Into the
direction?
auto.
Yeah.
So for me, what it was, I had the pleasure of going to the awesome, marvelous, magnificent Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School
That's what's up.
in Detroit, Michigan. And King would, like, we don't have magnet schools in
Okay.
Michigan. I don't know about in Illinois. And the only reason I know about magnet schools is because I went to college in the South.
Okay.
And it was
Okay.
like the King was the equivalent of a magnet school. Like you had to take a test or play sports to be at that school.
Okay.
For me, I passed the test, but they recruited me to play football.
Okay.
So
Okay.
cool. Got in, played ball, got injured freshman
Understand
year.
understand
Huh?
Suge, huh? Understand where the Suge coming yeah.
Exactly. But shit, I'm gonna get to where Suge came from
Okay.
too, because my name is Sejan, right? But I'm
Okay.
gonna get to
Okay.
where Suge came from too. I'm gonna try to get there as quick as possible.
No, you good.
Uh, had an injury freshman year playing
Hmm.
ball.
Okay.
Doctor ends up telling me, "Hey, listen, we seen some things. We thought you were going to be out in 2 weeks, but we're going to rush you to the hospital for an emergency MRI. The
Woo.
cab is actually outside right now. I was at home, had on a little neck brace, thought I had whiplash. I'll be back in
Mm.
2 weeks. I'm mad because I'm missing 2 games.
Right.
Get to the hospital to do the MRI. Side note, I hope I never have to do another MRI in my life. That was like,
Mhm.
Yeah, I've
I
heard.
should
I
have
have
let them
never
sedate
done
me.
one.
I really
Yeah.
should have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't tell me anything at the hospital. They send the results to my family practice doctor, Dr. Little.
Okay.
Dr. Little calls me and my mom in, and it was funny because he was sitting at his desk. We sitting at the desk, and when he said, we looked at the MRI, we found some stuff. He gets up from his desk and he walks to the other side of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, "Well, son, it'll be my advice that you don't play football anymore for the rest of your life."
Mm.
He thought I was gonna flip. Come to
Mm-hmm.
find out, I was born with cervical spina bifida. If
Mm.
you don't know anything about spina bifida, it's like a cousin to cerebral palsy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know how people with cerebral palsy look, they typically, if they walk at all, it's very slow. It's a limp. It's weird because it's a
Right.
spinal disease.
Right.
Well, he said at this point in time, you're maybe 1 in 3 people in the world that has spina bifida that can walk, let alone play
Mm.
sports like you have,
Wow.
because of where I'll say because of where God placed my disease. It allowed me to do things, and it allowed them not to detect it at birth.
Wow.
So
Wow.
football out of the question. From there, I get into I still play sports, but I get on the swim team. Something you don't
Okay.
see black folk doing. My cousin was like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
absolutely.
I know you can sing. You should get on. You should get in choir. You should get on the swim team with me." I'm like, I'm good. I'm a football player. I'm like, I used to rap back then too. So I'm like
Okay.
singing and swimming. Like, who black people swim? You crazy? And he knew the key. He knew the key to get me. And at the time, it was a girl.
Right.
So when he bring me in the choir room, I'm looking at all of this good looking and all these girls in these swimsuits on the swim team.
Mm-hmm.
So I get on the swim team and I get in choir.
Right.
Mind you, my father was a career musician, so music is in my
Okay.
bones. Like
Okay.
the arts, period, dancing, drawing, all of that
Right.
stuff is in my bones, period.
That's what's up.
I just wasn't really tapping into it at the time.
Right.
Long story short, I get in the choir. I excel. I excel on the swim team too, but I do very, very well in choir. I'm learning how to read music, how to write music, singing in different languages. We're traveling the world really, and I'm winning medals. I end up getting a full scholarship to. I got a scholarship offer for Howard, Bowling Green, K-State, and Alabama A&M. The only full scholarship was Alabama A&M. But this scholarship don't come until May. We graduating in June. I'm thinking I'm finna be out here with all types of loans and everything else because nobody else is offering a full scholarship. Alabama A&M offers me the full scholarship. So hey, if y'all gonna pay, I see you in Alabama.
Right, let's do it.
You understand? So I graduate high school 2002. I go to Alabama A&M. I'm thinking music was going to be my path. I get deep off into the music industry, build studios. I'm a part of production groups, producing music, writing music, engineering, all of that. It doesn't work out, and I kind of get mad at God. And I had my what I'll call my screaming at God moment where I said, Lord, you told me that music was my gift, and I'm using this music and it's not working, right? And when I screamed that at him, he said to me, I told you to seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, not your gift. So that kind of changed my trajectory. I'll always love music. It'll always be a passion of mine. But at that time, I was doing something. I was doing some of everything. I'm one of those people that's like uber talented. It's either I can't do it or I'm at least good at it. Which I call it a curse because it's like when you can sing like Whitney Houston, you might be good at something else, but you're going to sing. You know what I'm saying? When you can run like Barry Sanders, you might be able to do a cartwheel, but you can run. That's what you're going to do. For me, it was like I could sing, I could rap, I could write. I was doing sneaker customizations. I was preaching. I was speaking in the community. I was doing all of this stuff. And in my mind, I said, I'm going to do everything that I know how to do until one of them works out. That never happened. And I called that the confusion portion of my life. I was doing too much. I couldn't focus fully on one thing long enough for it to work. And one day, my godson's mother, my first godson, his mother, one of my best friends, Natia Joyner, called me and said, "Hey, bro, we were going to the same church in Alabama." Now, mind you, at this point, this is like 2013. I have been in Alabama since 2002. So I left home in 2002, came home, during the holidays all the way up until about 2005. Around 2005 is when I started my stint of not coming home for a long time. And she says, bro, I know you could cut. Now, at that time, I went to college with hair, and 2 years later, it was gone. So I would cut my own hair and do my own little beard or whatever. And I kind of got good at it. And she said, bro, I know you could cut hair. Like I'm doing a back to school event at the local Salvation Army. She had a really big heart for the homeless. I have a big heart for the homeless too, but hers was way bigger than mine. So she was like, I'm doing this event. I'm going to do hair. Why don't you come cut? I knew I wasn't like no real certified barber, but I was like, well, if it's going to help the people, then cool. And that was at a very depressing time in my life. So helping people was one of the things that kind of got me out of it. And I get there. We did it on a Sunday in August, first Sunday in August after church, 2013. I'll never forget it. I get there and it's like 13, 14 dudes waiting on me. They like, "You the barber?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Oh, we waiting on you." I'm like, "Dang, okay." Come to find out, the person that created the flyer didn't put back to school hairdos and haircuts. They just put back to school haircuts. So she just sitting there chilling like, "Yeah, they waiting on you, bro." Like, all right, well, let me set up. I cut everybody hair. I mean, I messed up a lot of them, and they was all smiling. They were all happy, and got done. And they were looking at us because a lot of them just stayed and talked to us, and got done. And they was looking at us like, "All right, so when y'all coming back?" It's like, she looked at me, I looked at her. She was like, "Next Sunday." I was like, "Cool." But that turned into every Sunday that month. and we was tired because I had a regular job at the time. I worked in special education at that point in my life as a paraprofessional. And
been there.
Okay.
Been there. Yes,
So
sir.
I'm about to say, usually when I use that word, if you know, you know. If you don't, you like, okay, well, you helped them.
Been there.
and she like I said, we kept going, and she was like, bro, if we're gonna keep doing this, we got to take at least one Sunday a month off. All right, cool. Well, 2 weeks into it, I kind of started feeling like, man, I couldn't wait to get out of church so I could go cut hair. And what it was, I didn't know how much barbers made, none of that at this point in time. All I knew is when I go up here and I talk to these gentlemen, I cut their hair, I'm amazed at the fact that when this guy tells me his story, he's still smiling. Because some of these men, I don't know if y'all know how the Salvation Army goes, and it's different in different places, but in Alabama, the Salvation Army is a shelter in certain places, and it's also a drug abuse program. And for some of these gentlemen, if they don't make it through the drug abuse program, they go into jail. And for others, it's like, well, if I don't get here by 4:30, I don't have a bed. Well, if I don't get here by 4:30, I won't get a meal tonight. I got to go out on the streets and find one. If I don't get here by 6:30, I won't have a bed to sleep in because it's a limited amount of beds every night. And this guy is smiling. He don't have a place to live. I'm depressed because I can't consistently pay my $300 a month rent. So cutting this gentleman's hair and seeing him smile in his situation put me in place.
Okay.
I got addicted to the smiles, which made me want to get better at the haircuts. So one of my best friends, his name is Chris Deputy. He owns Dep City Barbershop in Huntsville, Alabama, still to this day. I remember when we were in college, he was the dorm room barber. $5 a cut 20 people, get $100, go to the club type deal. And by then, he had his own shop. So I would go up there, first person ever used a shaver on my head because all I knew was clippers. I wouldn't dare try to put no razor on my head at that time. And I went up to his shop. I knew he had a chair available, and I'm a visual learner. So I'm like, man, can I come up here and occupy that chair and watch? You know, I cut some people if they come, but I just want to watch and learn. He was like, yeah, come on, just pay me $50 a week. Cool. I'm learning at the shop, taking it to the Salvation Army. And at a certain point, I knew, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop doing everything else. And I'm going to see what happens if I put everything into this barbering thing. I Googled how much barbers make, and it said the median barber salary in 2013 was $27,000 a year.
Seen that.
We all know about that, and we all know why. You know, on barbers, you know, a lot of barbers is ducking right now this time of year, and that's why it says that, right? So at that point, I never forget. One day, I'm in the regular shop, and a white guy comes in, a white guy that my boy normally cuts, and he was like, well, man, I ain't got no space for you. He can get you though. I'm like, all right. I sit him in my chair, drape him up, cut the clippers on, look at his head. I cut them clippers off, and I said, bro, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I don't know how to cut your hair. I don't even want to mess you up. He said, man, I appreciate that, man. Got up. But what I took from that is I never wanted to feel like there was somebody whose hair I couldn't cut again. So at that point, I knew visually I had learned all I could learn because it wasn't that many white guys or straight hair clients coming to the shop. So I seek out barber school. It's only one barber school in Huntsville. And this is the barber school for 4 or 5 different cities. It's a widespread amount. There may be more at the now, but you got to understand, like Alabama was one of the last states to have a licensing requirement. My homeboy got his license, like he had been cutting for a while, for a long time. He went to the guy at the board and said, hey man, I'm trying to get a license. The dude was like, well, you're gonna have to go to school with this. And he was like, man, I already own the shop. I've been cutting for this long. I own Dep City Barbershop on West Parkway or whatever. And the dude was like, all right, take this book, study it for a week, come back, take the test. We get you licensed. That's how he got his barber's license, literally, right? and that's all you had to do for the most part in Alabama up until a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And at that point, I went to barber school and signed up and everything. I'm like, bet I'm gonna work it during the day, go to
Mm-hmm.
barber school at night, bet it up.
Mm-hmm.
I get there to validate my schedule, and they say, "Oh man, we're gonna have to change our schedule around to the day schedule because all of the instructors opted out of night teaching because all of the instructors in Huntsville, Alabama, are active barbers and stylists.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't want to give up, their clients during the night to come teach.
Absolutely, you gotta get that money.
Well, I got a job, so I can't come during the day.
Right.
So that was the end of the barber school thing at that point in time for me.
Okay.
Huntsville for me had become a dead end city, and that's a whole another conversation. It's not that Huntsville is a bad place. It's typically for the past 20 years, it's been in Reader's Digest top 10 places to raise a family.
Right.
But at that point in time, it was a dead end place for me. But I didn't want to come back home because it was pride.
Okay.
I got to college, and nobody from my core family ever came to see me while I was in college. I do a senior recital. That's typically a big thing. People, family come up. I cross a fraternity. Nobody from my family was at probate or anything like that or whatever. So I had kind of grown some resentment for coming home. And at that time, "Hey, when you coming home again? When you coming home?" Like, well, y'all realize every time I come home, I got to spend gas money or a plane ticket or a bus ticket or something like that. Y'all don't ever come see me. I come home when you send me the money. How about that?
Yeah.
So I didn't come home for a while. Longer story short, I ended up moving to Dallas, Texas in 2014.
Okay.
When I moved to Dallas, I didn't move to Dallas to cut hair specifically. I moved to Dallas because I had got a job with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And back then, I was more so known as a community activist. I was, that back then was when, Mike Brown had first happened, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, all of that stuff was going on in that time. And I was real deep off into the community, marching and all that type of stuff. And I got a job with Big Brothers Big Sisters, corporate.
Okay.
Get down to Dallas. I'm working that job. It wasn't paying much at all. And I was with a female and great girl, long distance relationship. But at that time, it was weird because she was making like $60,000-$70,000 a year, and I was making like 25.
Okay.
Great girl. Money wasn't the issue. It just wasn't gonna work at that time. And we were long distance. But what happened was one day we were on the phone. I had gave up. I had looked at all of the barber schools. Mind you, I went to college. I did everything except graduate. I've taken all my classes. All I need to do is pass a specific test and graduate. I took that test 5 times. I got tired of putting money into it. And if anybody that knows me is like, he's not a dumb dude. Even when it comes to textbook stuff, I'm not a dumb guy. I don't know what it was about this particular test I could not pass. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure something else out. And that was the spiral my life went down. And she was like, you're talented. Like, you can cut hair. You need to find a barber school. I'm like, look, lady, I done looked at all of the barber schools, and I can't pay for any of these places because I can't get financial aid because my financial aid is done. You only get a specific amount of years of financial aid. Man, she badgered me so bad on that phone call that I hung up on her. And if anybody that knows me, if I hang up on you, it got to be real. And definitely don't hang up on me if it's not real. You know what I'm saying? I hung up on her and I got on the computer again and typed in the same exact thing I had been typing in for weeks. And the school pops up, $3,500 cash. I don't got $3,500, but they taking payments.
Okay.
Now, mind you, this school was like 30 miles away. So, all right, it is what it is. My car running. I get to the school, gave them a down payment. I'm making this drive to work. At the time, work was 3-4 miles away from the house, and I would drive all the way to school, drive all the way back. And I was staying with my best friend. And the time came for me to go ahead and move out. It wasn't like hey man, you need to get out. It was like, hey man, I need to get out. You need to have your apartment to yourself. It's time for me to go. The only place I could afford at the time that I could find was a city another 25 miles away. So at the time, I'm going 25 miles to work, another 25 to 30 miles to school, and then 50 miles back home.
Mm.
6 days a week.
Mm.
I'm broke though. I'm
Right.
barely making a school payment. It was times where I had to make a choice between paying my rent, making a school payment. I'm calling my brother, my frat brothers, like, hey, can you PayPal me like $20 so I can put some gas in the tank? I put 15 in the tank, go to Aldi and buy a bunch of noodles and bologna and bread and Kool-Aid, and that's how I
Mm.
ate for the week. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And there was some days where I had to call off work because I didn't have enough gas to make it
Mm.
to both places.
Right.
And it was times where the owner of that school, I'll never forget, I started at Master Barbers Institute in Dallas, Texas, specifically Oak Cliff, which is the Mexican side of town.
Okay.
Well, Oak Cliff specifically is not the Mexican side of town. I was on the Mexican side of Oak Cliff.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is where I learned how to use my shears and cut straight hair because that's all that's coming in there. It used to be funny when it was only two black guys, me and the dude named, I don't remember his real name, but we called him Smoke. He was from New
Mhm.
Orleans. And if Smoke wasn't cutting hair, he was asleep. Period. Every time. But he could cut though, and he always passed his test, so they didn't bother him. So when a black person would walk in, they would look at one of us like, y'all going? It's like, okay, hair is hair. That was the
Right.
concept that I had at that time, whether it was straight or not. Hair is hair,
Right.
so I'm not
Right.
tripping. That's where I got my bones in
Okay.
Dallas, Texas, because like I said, that's where I learned how to cut all types of hair.
Okay.
And within that year, I complete about 600 or 700 hours.
Mhm.
Financially, it just wasn't working out for me in Dallas, Texas. And
Okay.
my brother called me and said, "Hey, little bro, I know it's bad. I know it's worse than you telling us it is because you've called me almost twice a month to ask me
Mhm.
for a little bit here, a little bit there. And you're not that
Mhm.
type of guy." He was
Mhm.
like, "I understand," because my worst fear was coming home, because coming home to me meant I failed, because all my
Right.
homies that went off to college with me within a year or two, they was back in Detroit on that bull.
Okay.
So coming home to me meant failure. That's what I had taught myself. And it took my big brother saying, "Look, my little bro, I know how you feel about that, but listen, man, you've been gone 13, 14 years. If anybody succeeded at leaving, you did.
Yeah.
It's all right to come home." He said, "because it's a lot easier at this point for me, for you to call me and say, hey, I'm hungry. I can cook you some food. My wife could cook you some food. You can come through and eat, or I could take you where you need to go rather than I
Right.
have to send you some money." Because my mom was going through some things at the time too. So he kind of, big bro, taking care of both of us.
Right.
I came on home. I did not want to come home. I did not want to come home. But it was not my desire to come home and not be a licensed barber.
Okay.
So I came home. My first visit is Michigan Barber School right up on Grand River. I go up there. I talk to the lady. She says it's $11,000. I'm like, okay. She was like, you might be able to get a loan from a bank. I already got student loans. I ain't trying to get an $11,000 loan to do this, but I'm gonna figure
Right.
something out. I'll get back
Right.
to y'all.
Right.
I find a shop to cut in. I'm not gonna name the shop because he's an older gentleman. He's a legend
Okay.
really in the hair industry, but he gets
Okay.
real, man. I'm like, I'm licensed now, so they can't really say anything to you. But all right, out of
The
Right.
respect for
statute
you,
of limitation.
right, it's up, it's a wrap. But I'm like, all right, out of respect for you, I ain't gonna say nothing, no names, but I cut in this shop almost 2 years, and my workaround was while I was there, I was doing a cosmetology apprenticeship because
Mm.
because I was in a salon, not a barbershop,
Okay.
but I was cutting.
Okay.
They don't have a barber apprenticeship in the state of Michigan still to this day. They're
Mm.
supposedly trying to work on it. I have
Mhm.
my thoughts about the state board here, but that's a whole nother story or
Right.
interview.
Right.
Um, so I'm doing the apprenticeship to have a mode of being safe in the
Okay.
shop if board comes through.
Okay.
And I end up leaving that shop. That's when I learned man weave. 2016, top of
Mm.
2016, I take the trip to Chicago and I go to Erskine Reeves and I learn my first man weave class.
Mm.
And I remember Erskine saying at the time, hey man, 9 times out of 10, when you get back to your shop, you're gonna end up having to leave. Like, what you
Mm.
mean? What you mean? Everybody good at my shop. Nobody else from your shop is in this class. And I know the pedigree of the people in your shop, they good, but their time of being hungry like that was 10, 15 years ago because they've been in the industry for a minute. I'm like, all right, whatever. I get back to the shop and I'll never forget the day because I'm trying to speed this up. The day that I knew I was going to have to leave, one of the guys across from me who've been doing hair for a long
Mm.
time, he's still not licensed though, but he been doing hair for a long time. At this point, because of the tutelage that he sat under for so long, he was supposed to have multiple shops. He was supposed to, he had the keys to the industry. Missed his days. And they was like, you should learn how to do, man, because he can do hair and he can cut. He can really do hair. He's not that great of a barber, but he's good though. He's solid. They said you should learn how to do man weave. And he was like, I ain't paying for no class. I'm just gonna watch Suge. I said, no. No, hell, no, no, you're not. I'll get me a little whatever them shades is called before you look. I'd say, you understand how much I done paid $700 to go take this class, and you think you just go look? I say, I'll give you half off or something. No, I ain't doing. No, I'm just gonna look at you. A month later, I was gone, and I went to another salon, but this particular salon was a place where I didn't necessarily need a private suite to do it. They weren't trying to do man weaves. They just was like marveling at seeing it happen or whatever. They would wait. They wasn't making no comments. They would wait until that dude walked out, and they would be like, "You're a magician," because that dude didn't look nothing like that when you walked in here.
Yeah,
And,
I was going down your page, and that was the first thing I'm saying.
Right.
Is this the same person?
Right.
I done got messages. It used to offend me when people would say they ain't the same person.
Yeah,
and that's a different person. His fingers is different. When they would say stuff like that, I was like, you know what?
F you. You know?
That means I'm doing a good job. Let me stop being offended. You know, somebody
So
gonna
they
hate
looking
anyway.
at the thing.
Right. And that's where I Create Confidence came from. It started with man weaves because I probably studied branding way more than barbering in the past 3 years.
Okay.
And 3 years ago is where I Create Confidence started. And I was just trying to figure out how to brand myself because my pastor would be like, I ain't calling you no Suge. You know who Suge is? What if P. Diddy come in town and he want a haircut? You think he gonna go to somebody named Suge? And I'm like, Pastor, I don't think it's that deep, but all right. But I started thinking about it and I was like, I mean, for what is another way to brand myself? Because Suge actually came from barber school in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
I would be cutting, and a lot of the Mexican guys would be like, "Hey man, anybody ever tell you look like Suge Knight?" I'm like, yeah, all the time. What you want, a 2 on top and a buffet, right? You know. But it was like, okay, you know what? That's a way to brand myself. So that's when I started calling myself Suge the Barber.
That's what's up.
Then fast forward, I started doing man weaves, and I started paying attention to how the person that was getting a man weave sat down, or even the person that's getting a regular haircut, how they sat down and how they got up, especially when I would take before and after pictures. That after picture, either the look on their face would be confidence. You know how you look when you chisel and they taking a picture. If you ain't gonna smile, you're gonna give them that face, right?
Right.
Or you're gonna smile. And I'm like, you know what? I create confidence. That's what I'm doing. And that's where that started. And that's when the wheels started turning. I was like, you know what? I create confidence is more than a euphemism about a haircut. It's a total thing because some of these guys love their haircut, but they're getting up confident because of the conversation that we had. I'm also an elder in my church. So for me, I just got off Clubhouse and I was telling them how my chair is my pulpit.
Absolutely.
I'm not necessarily a pulpit I can pulpit preach, but where I do most of my ministry from in the form of words is from behind that chair. And I've always been the guy before hair. I was the guy that people would tell everything. It would be crazy, man. You know, especially being in a fraternity. You know, your bros talking about what they did to this girl and that girl, and the girl would be like, "No, it wasn't that good." And they would just people would just tell me. I'd just be sitting there chilling. And they would just turn to me and just start divulging secrets. So I started calling myself the Vault because it's like, you know what? If people are going to trust me in this way, then I'm not going to go and tell people stories for them. I'll keep it. If they ask me for advice, I'm going to give that. And that's what that, like before I left Huntsville, I started telling my story in full, parts of my story that I had never told before. And I put it on YouTube. And every so often I reshare it because from a male perspective, like for me, I was molested as a child. And a lot of men go through it and they'll only talk about it a certain extent. Once I started sharing that, people just felt like they could really, really talk to me. You know, in my inboxes, they come to me, get their hair cut and tell me about it. So I kind of became, you know how we all us barbers and stylists end up becoming makeshift therapist, you know.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah, man.
To even as a man to even be able to divulge that information, that's powerful, bro. That's really powerful.
Talking about it is how I healed from it.
Absolutely.
To be is one of the best ways for me to heal from it was to keep talking about it, because when you don't talk about it and somebody brings it up, then embarrassment is typically the first thing you feel.
Absolutely.
So to protect myself from embarrassment, I took the 8 Mile route. I'm gonna tell you everything that you think you can embarrass me with, and then see what you got.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Clarence parents have a real good marriage.
Exactly. Right. You got it. And I'm gonna toss the mic back to you, and you're gonna be sitting there like, your head big. Thanks.
Right.
Sit down. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much in a nutshell the best way I could give my story of barbering. Like, I spent literally thousands of dollars at this point on honing my craft, both in man weave and branding classes, classes on clip roll, comb, all types of different techniques. Because I'm the type of barber that I would do stuff like, when I first came home, my bread and butter was traveling the cut because I didn't have people there. So I would advertise like, hey, I'll come to you. And I would mess around and forget a guard that I felt like I needed. And that's when I really started looking at Kenny Duncan, because this is around 2015, 2016, when he really started ramping up on the clip roll comb stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was in the shop one day and I said, you know what, the only way I'm gonna get this clip roll comb thing is if I leave all my guards at home and force myself to do it. So that's what I did. I literally took all my guards home, and for about a month, I did clip roll comb. It was the same way with detachable blades. I was like, all right, I'm not using nothing else except metal guards, because you can't tell me that there is no, because back in the 60s and 70s, that's what they did. Clip roll comb and metal guards. You can't tell me that you can't cut coarse hair this way. There has to be a way to do this. So I would just force myself to do it. So now at this point, I'm in the mode where I'm really ready to educate, because I messed up for you already. Now, I'm not saying that you're not gonna mess up. I'm actually gonna tell you, especially if you in barber school, go ahead and mess up. Stop trying to be perfect, especially if you're in barber school. This is where you can mess up. No, because trust me, people tell you can take clients from barber school, but let me tell you, if they coming to you every 2 weeks or every week and paying $5 to $10 for that cut at a barber school, they are definitely not coming to you at your shop when you finna raise your price. It's not gonna happen. You feel me? So mess up. And then figure out how to fix it. That's how you get it, because barber school is not meant to teach you how to be a great barber. It's meant to teach you how to pass that test and get a piece of paper.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
True story.
I feel like I've been talking a lot now. So
no, the best episodes are when we can shut up.
Man, you're right. Real talk.
So y'all be sitting there like, okay, let me find another question.
And it's a beautiful thing, man. That's big. We're big on stories, and it's called "I Cut My Way Out" for a reason. And I think you done put it there.
I got something to speak toward that, because it was fun when y'all DM me for the first time. I saying this, and I was like, do I know these dudes? Because literally, are you guys familiar with a page called Faded You?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Faded You is y'all might want to interview him too. Faded You is also in Detroit. His name is Jared the Barber. Faded You Grooming is his barber page.
And he started. We love contacts too. You can put us in there.
I put you in the game. He started, he pretty much started Faded You to be kind of a caveat to Barbershop Connect. We all know the phenomenon of Barbershop Connect.
Absolutely.
And he started Faded You around that time too. And one day me and him was talking, and almost like this, telling our different stories. And I was like, man, I ain't gonna lie, man. I cut my way out. I ain't gonna lie. Like, that's how I got over my depression. I literally said that because I'm like, have I talked to them before they started a podcast off of what I said to them? Because I'm probably one of the most traveled in the past 5 years barbers in the Metro Detroit area.
Okay.
Well, and like when I use the term Metro, I never used the term Metro until I got to Texas. Because Texas, they have what they call the Metroplex. And the Metroplex is consorted of about 20-something odd different cities. So I never knew what they meant when they said it's in Southfield, a Metro Detroit suburb. I'm like, that's what they mean when they say Metro.
Right.
So Man, in 2016 is when I started traveling to cut, and
Okay.
that came from a plug that I ended up having with the Church of God in Christ.
Okay.
And I ended up going cutting for AIM. Then they brought me back to cut for Convocation.
Okay.
Then it was the women's conference, and they kept bringing it. And we kind of formed a team. And for about
Okay.
3-4 years,
Okay.
we were the barber team for the conference.
Okay.
And from that, it was like, okay, why don't you come cut here? Then I started doing man weave. So people start, hey, come do this, blah blah blah. So I was traveling all types of places to cut hair, and
Okay.
because, like I said, because of that, it was like I know people from a lot of different places. I know barbers from a lot of different places, and I got clients in a lot of it's a couple different cities and different states I can move to right now. And you give me about a month, and I'll probably have a clientele just like I have now. To God be the glory, because I know everybody can't say that. So yep. And I never forget saying that to him, because he was like, he makes t-shirts too. He makes shirts and crew necks and stuff and put different stuff on them. And I was like, man, I cut my way out. He was like, dog, I'm gonna put that on a shirt. And he ain't did it yet. But I was like, go ahead, man. I ain't being stingy. Go ahead. Just give me about 20% of the profit.
And honestly, it was funny because when he approached me about it and the name and everything, it was just like, let's go. Because the idea was just awesome. The name was awesome. Like, we got to get something out. So even though you done used it,
it's all good, man. And that's what happened when God dropped an idea to you, and you don't capitalize on it.
and actually, and not to hold it up, it's interesting because some of the so many of us barbers are just people in general have similar stories. But like you talked about, working as a paraprofessional, I did that. Went back to school, got my degree, worked my way up to the administrative capacity, working in a school system, and ended up dealing with anxiety, depression, and these clippers, man, was my way out. And that's how I cut my way out of I cut my way out. I created freedom for myself. Wow. That anxiety, that depression lesson, and actually the whole concept came. I don't know if you've ever listened to the song Nas, Louis Miranda from Hamilton, and Dave East have a song called "I Wrote My Way Out," and it's one of the dopest songs that I've ever heard. And right before we started this, I always had the vision for about a year. I sat on the idea of this podcast, but it never came to me a name or exactly how it would all come together. And we're in Atlanta, and Atlanta is one of my favorite places to be. It just brings out that spirit in me. It's an entrepreneurial place for Black people, right?
Definitely.
And me and my wife were there in September. We were getting ready to go out to eat. It was my birthday and our anniversary weekend. And she brought the little speaker, so she's playing Apple Music, and it's in the playlist. And come out, I wrote my way. Dope song. But they're talking about how they use the pen to express themselves and how it created an avenue for them to write their way out of their situation, whether it be poverty, Louis Miranda, bullying, all types of stuff. And so as the hook is going, I wrote my way out. I just kept looking at my wife. I'm like, I cut my way out, and I'm just singing it. And I'm like, that's it. So I couldn't wait to get back home to holler at my guy, because he's into the whole podcasting, that he's big on it, and he's a communications major. That's his lane. And he was already doing the podcast. And I love not only to cut hair, but I love to run my mouth. Right. And so it was just a match made, and it was a match made in heaven, man. And that's where it came from, because I literally feel like I cut my way out, and I don't know, at the direction that I was going, how much longer I could have lasted going that direction. And when I say that, I mean that literally.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I mean that
that's
literally.
Beautiful. And for a lot of us, the barbering industry for a Black man, because of how law has been shaped in America for Black people, period, not just men. A lot of men have been unjustly locked up for way more time than they should have, or unjustly locked up, period. And they get out of jail, because we all know the rehabilitation system really doesn't rehabilitate. And, you know, they throw you away when you get out. So for a lot of men, getting into the barbering industry was the only thing they could do to make good money.
Absolutely.
These weren't necessarily bad men, you know.
And now we're at a point where it's evolved so much, and the timing is just perfect. Because that's one of the things I want to ask you. Like with the evolving services, the hair unit, what was it the finances that the increased finances that you could make that drew you to learning how to do the hair units?
So for me, I didn't know how much you could make to do it.
Okay.
I just knew, I'll never forget, it was probably about October of 2015. Now I just moved home trying to build a clientele. And I was actually kind of at a crux in my career, because for a second I was doing all right with the clients, because I went by appointment almost off rip. I knew I didn't want to walk in. I didn't have no clientele for real. So I would take them if I could. And I would be, you know, at the shop or something on Instagram, and I'll never forget, in October, I come across Erskine Reeves' page, and he's posting this man weave. I'm like, wait a minute, that dude just didn't have no hair on top. What's this? So I got real interested, and I'm like, yo, I see him advertise a class, and he had a class in October. I couldn't afford it at that time though. So then he had another class coming up January. I believe it was January 18th, 2016. Don't quote me on that. And I knew that I was going to go to Chicago to go to one of the Midwest barber trade shows in Chicago. It was pretty much that same, shout out to them. That same weekend, it was pretty much like the trade show was on Saturday. Ursula's class was that Saturday, and that next week, Ursula's class was on that Sunday. So me and Fade and went to the trade show together, right? That's a whole nother funny story that I won't tell it. We go to the trade show, and I'm like, yeah, I'm coming back. That's when this is my first time meeting Erskine Reeves and OG Walker, who was going by Jermaine Walker, his real name at the time.
Another
coolest
shout
dude,
out, an absolute beast.
One of the coolest, most down to earth dudes in the industry you will ever meet. You know what I'm saying?
He's another one I would love to have on here, man. I'm real tough.
Definitely.
Yes, sir.
And to answer the question, I didn't know how much you can make. I just was interested. When I become interested in something, I become a geek about it. I want to know everything about it. I start studying everything. Like for me, I would say my fades and my cuts turn out the way they do because I really started studying head shapes. Not cuts. And I was following Tony Tonsurial. I don't know if you know who that is. I was following Tony long before I even came. I was following Tony Tonsurial when I was in Alabama. And because he was the only black man I was seeing really use shears. Because this was right after I had my little incident where I get this white boy, and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do with this, bro. So I started following Tony back then, and I would DM him, and he actually replied to me, to my surprise. And like I said, I didn't know how much you could make. I just knew I was very much interested in learning how to do this. I couldn't afford to go to that October class, so what ended up happening, I broke down. I went to my pastor and I said, Pastor, listen, man, it's a class that I want to take. It's in Chicago. I'm gonna pay my way there. All I got right now that I can spare is $350, because the class was $650. I said, I need, if you could loan me the $300, I'll pay. I promise you, I'll pay it back. He said, is this something you think is really profitable for you to do? I said, I'm sure it is. Okay. He looked at it at the accountant, write him a check for $300. Okay, cool. He wrote me the check, paid for me. Now, mind you, before that, my pastor actually bought me my first barber chair. I'll never forget that night. I had actually put up on Facebook, I was looking for a chair because I was in a salon. Remember, salons don't have chairs with the, they typically don't have that chair where I can really do my razor work like I need to.
The style of chairs,
I needed a chair. The chair that I was looking at was $500, again, which I didn't have. I get to church that night, and my pastor said, listen, come to this end of the service. He said, come to the front. He said, you put on Facebook that you needed something, right? I said, yeah. He said, what was that? I said, a barber chair. He said, okay. How much is that chair? I said, it's about $500, Pastor. And in front of everybody, he said, okay, listen, God told me to write you a check for $500 and let you know that your season of hand-me-downs it's over. Go get you a new chair.
Wow.
So that was the first seed he ever planted into my career. And my pastor is the type. I go to New Life Family Church here in Detroit, Michigan. He's sown. Our church is an entrepreneurial church. That's the best way for me to say it. Like, there's so many businesses in our church, man, and all young folk too.
That's
and he writes me the check. I go to Chicago, do my first class. Mind you, I had a client already that was like, "Yo, if you take that class, I'm gonna get a man."
Right.
Hey, I'm finna make the money back already, so as I get back to town.
Right.
I go to the class, and this was before Erskine came up with the advent of a hands-on man weave class, unless you were gonna bring an actual person.
Okay.
So I go to that class, learn it, and I get back, and my client is like, "Okay, I'm gonna wait till May." Man, it's January, bro. You want me to wait? And I remember Erskine saying, "Look, man, this is a muscle memory type deal, so you need to do it as soon as possible."
Okay.
So I called Erskine like, "Man, I'm having problems, man. I got a client, but he trying to wait." He said, "Do this." He said, "Look, I got another class coming up in April." He said, "No, March." He said, "I got another class coming up at the end of March." He said, "Tell your client you'll do his unit for free, so long as he drives you or, get you to Chicago, pay for, room and board. If y'all gonna spend the night, he paying for all the food, but you're gonna do his unit for free." I didn't think it was gonna work. I called that man and said that. He was like, "Oh, okay, cool." That man drove me all the way to Chicago, sat through that class. I did my first unit actually in a class, because he was like, Erskine was like, "If you come back for a second class, my advice to you would be to bring a model, because you've been here already. I'm not gonna cater to you because you already know what to do. So you basically just mirroring what I do." And that's what I did. I did that second unit in that class. Well, I did my first unit in that class. Posted the pictures. It didn't necessarily go viral like I thought it was gonna go, but that was the first time I got 1,000 views on a video.
Wow.
And it I ain't gonna say it took off from there. It progressed from there. I did him a couple times. Then Erskine started sending people to me that were coming to him from Michigan that didn't know, because I was the first person in the state of Michigan to do man weaves.
Wow.
Everybody looked at me like I was crazy when I was saying I'm going to pay $700, especially when I was going back again for another class and paying more money. They was like, "Man, ain't nobody getting that stuff."
Wow. Now let me and my man ask the $1 million question, because I've seen these units, man, and I just thought that it was awesome that the way that the game is evolving. Tell us kind of how the process works. One, how much would it cost to get done, and just the process? How long does it last? That type of thing. Because I've thought about, and I'm still thinking about taking a class. Unfortunately, I'm in one of those areas right now in terms of location that I'm not sure, and Jinx, help me if you agree or disagree, that clients would be willing to pay the type of money that it requires to provide that type of service. So but it's something, because I want to be well-rounded, and so it's something that I'm interested in. So could you answer those questions for us, just in terms of the process and the cost?
First, I'll say this: you guys are in Champaign.
Champaign, Illinois.
Yep.
Champaign, Illinois. So I actually think we have a class coming to Champaign or close. I'm also an educator with the Head Barber Academy, which is headed by Tony Tonsurial.
Okay, so Champaign, you're a football guy. I don't know if you're familiar with the last place that Lovie Smith was at as a football coach at the University of Illinois. So we're about 132 miles south of Chicago.
Okay, got you. So because y'all at that, he was saying it's kind of like a midpoint.
Yeah.
I forgot, between St. Louis, I think, something like that.
We're not far from St. Louis.
It's not far. So so it's Interstate 57 runs straight from Chicago to, I wouldn't say St. Louis, but you can take 57 to 70, or if you're in Chicago, you can take 55 and it's a straight shot. So it's kind of between Chicago and St. Louis. But if you're from Chicago, you would take 55 But if you're going to like Memphis, you take 57 and you'd pass Champagne.
Got you. So yeah, he was saying basically there's because I believe I know a barber there. I forgot the name though, but he was basically saying it's kind of like an untapped area that really wants to be educated. So stay tuned. We may be coming there for a class. Also, I'm getting ready to finish.
Stay in tune with each other.
Definitely. I'm getting ready to finish my online tutorial for units, and we'll talk about that offline. And so cost-wise. So firstly, cost-wise for me, and it's different for everybody. For me, my units, a base level unit is going to start off at $250. And that's for the unit and the haircut. You want your beard done, we're gonna charge you a little bit more for that, right? So you're coming out $250 off rip, right? And that's gonna last you if it's a custom unit, meaning that's glued directly onto the scalp. That's not lace or anything like that. That's where the scalp exposure unit comes from, because the type of glue that we use for that dries clear. And so that's what makes it so you can see straight through to the scalp and not know anything, none the wiser. That's going to last you anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks base level. I have clients that have been able to make theirs last a little longer, but these are people who literally have been getting units from me since I started doing units. So the longer you get units, the more educated you become on how to take care of it when you can't get to me. Exactly, on maintenance and whatnot. So that's a regular, and that's no way, that's natural, right? $250 for that. If you're gonna get a line restoration, that's just the guy that his corners little messed up, or he got a nice little patch somewhere. That's $125, and that can be done. Let me take this one out. I'm sorry. A line restoration is gonna take me. I could do a line restoration in the same time as a regular haircut, which my appointment slots go by the hour because that don't take me that long to cut, but I'm very much into the customer service aspect. So you getting a hot towel, facial massage, shoulder massager, all types of other different stuff. So my appointment slot is an hour. Within that hour, I can do the cut and a line restoration. A regular custom unit is going to take me starting out. When I teach class, I tell them, give yourself about 3 to 4 hours on your first unit because you're going to be nervous. You're going to be thinking about the steps. And the more you do it, your baseline time comes down because muscle memory comes into place and you stop having to think about the steps, right? Just like cutting hair. That's $250. If you want a wave custom unit, that's going to start at $350. And I do that in about the same amount of time. At this point, I could do any of those units. I could do anywhere from an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. The quickest I did one was in about an hour and 15 minutes, and I was trying to get to something else, and so I had to get it up, get him out. On top of that, you do have what they call this one like a 1 to 2 month unit. It's not many people that still do them. The 1 to 2 month unit is not lace. It's on a weft. It's on a track. That was the first unit. That my first unit that I did was with track hair. And you use that track hair, you cut it in place, and it lasts a little bit longer for different reasons, but it's a lot harder to maintain and keep that in place or whatever. A lot of people don't get those anymore. But it can still be done. At its height, you would have lace units. And we say lace, but once you really get into it, you start to learn that lace is just one type of material. It's one type of cap that a unit can be put on. You have polyurethane, you have the net, you have all types of different, you have a polyurethane lace blend. It's all different types of caps that this hair can be put on depending on your client. I learned that when I went to St. Louis to take a class on being certified to take insurance payments. When you get to that level, and if I'm dealing with a person that has cancer, I now have to know what type of cancer they have, and I need to know where it is, because certain caps you can't put on a patient with cancer, especially if they're going through chemo, because it'll mess them up. Because chemo changes a lot. It changes your skin, and they'll get an infection if you put the wrong type of cap on it. So I had to learn that. Those lace units are going to start out at $650 and go up from there. Right now, lace units cost a lot of people that are doing lace units we're charging more because what the pandemic did was it made units very scarce. Of course, when they shut down the China border and all of that, because that's what we all know that's where a lot of this hair is coming from.
Absolutely.
It's being imported from China. So
right.
once they shut that down, those who had already taken trips to China to go direct to the vendors knew. So they just bought up everything. You know what I'm saying? And they bought up everything, and now it's like, okay, whereas you might have been able to pay 150 to 200 for a regular wave unit, now they want 350, 400 for the unit. Well, if they're gonna go up on the unit, I gotta go up on my price. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's how much those units cost.
Wow.
For a lace unit. Give yourself a couple hours your first time doing it, and then you start to realize, oh man, I could do this I could almost do this quicker or whatever. You know what I mean?
Now just with a basic haircut, with the fade, ball fade, taper, beard, how much do you charge just for the
like
basic
no unit
haircut?
Regular haircut?
Yeah, just regular haircut.
50.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You getting two.
And I really should be going up because like I said, for what I'm like, man, some of my clients, nobody argues with me over price anymore. But with other barbers, I'm like, man, to be honest, I actually should be charging more, because if I go to Atlanta and do the service that I do, I could easily charge 125 and up for everything that I'm doing. Everybody is not providing hot towels and massagers and shoulder massagers and in a private setting. And then on top of that, at the end of my cut, you get to pick from an array of different fragrances if you would like to. And this is not the fragrances that I provide. It's not Calvin Klein, it's not cheap stuff. It's Creed, by Nine.
I was going to say you ain't Creed nobody. That in itself is worth the charge.
Right. So at that point, so it's like, I should really, if I go to New York or somewhere, or not certain parts of New York, but if I go to other places, you will be paying way more for this service. So
man, look, if you got the plug on the Creed and the Bond 9, well, we need to talk about it.
Okay, I got something for you.
Okay,
let it up.
That's what's up, man. And you're providing a service, and that's what it's about, man. That's what's up. And it's so important during these times. And I always say a barber's legacy is how you can make money when you're not standing behind the chair, and just ways to continue to evolve to push that revenue base up. Everything else in the world continues to go up. That's what's up. So tell me this, and jump in whenever you feel it. But I'm just curious, like you talked early on about the cutting the homeless, and how important and that smile drove you. What do you think is the most important characteristic to being a successful barber, is, in your opinion?
The most important characteristic. I'm not going to say I feel like there's a specific most important characteristic. I guess, like I said, I'll give some of the characteristics I think should be involved. And one would definitely be passion outside of money for the industry.
Okay.
So for me, you got, like, now being a barber is more popular than it ever was.
Man, big time.
Right. You know what I mean? So, with the advent of social media and stuff like that, I was on the tail end.
We stunting on them now, Jack.
Man, what? Barbers are popular. The celebrities is talking about, and it's my bar. It wasn't 10 years ago. It wasn't like that. You know what I mean? You had a couple specific barbers that was like, you had the DLs and I forgot, man, I know this man's name, but he been cutting like celebrities since the 80s or whatever. But he's Kevin Hart's barber. He's been in the game for a long time. So for me, it was like I became passionate about the craft before I knew what type of money I could make. And then also for me, I started cutting hair when I was 30. So it was a whole different ball game. I'm 37 now. It was a different ball game for me. So I would say passion for the craft outside of money, right?
Okay.
The money will come if you're passionate and if you dig into it the right way. And you don't necessarily even have to be the best at cutting hair to really get money in this industry.
No doubt.
So I'll say number two, outside of passion, patience.
Okay.
When you start off, you're gonna be looking at some, especially with social media, you're gonna be looking at some real dope cuts. You're gonna follow some people that's dope, and then you're gonna want to do that. And the frustration comes when that person sits in your chair and you can see that dope cut, but you can't yet get your hands to do it. Right. So be patient, keep cutting. I used to hate it when I would hear people say, man, just keep cutting, you'll be fine. Because once you get there, you know how it looks when a person is gonna get there. Absolutely. And all you can really tell them is, look, man, there's no one step I can give you to say, do this and your cuts is gonna be dope. Take this class and your cuts is gonna be dope. Because at the end of the day, when you're taking the class, you're still looking at somebody else who knows how to do it. But those hands are not your hands. Absolutely. Your hands are uniquely yours. So patience, I would say, is definitely a factor in being successful. And balance. Learning the balance between shop and home, whether you have a family or not, I think is essential, because we're in the business to where when you get to that point where you're really good at your craft, that's when the clients stop caring about your personal needs. They'll call you at all times of night. You know how that go. They text you all the time. They want to come to you. They think you can cut because they think, well, you don't have a schedule like I do, and so you can cut whenever you feel like it. I'm like, nah, man. Yeah, I cut whenever I feel like it, and I don't feel like cutting right now. So it's like, be comfortable with saying no and understand that you cannot cut everybody's hair, no matter how good and fast you are. You can't cut everybody, and it's always going to be more clients than it is barbers.
Absolutely.
So I would say those would be three essential things I would say to being successful.
That's what's up. So to piggyback off of that, what does it mean to you personally being a barber?
To me, personally, being a barber was life-saving. And I think that's probably cliche to say, but it was life-saving for me, because when I stepped into the barbering industry at the Salvation Army, cutting the homeless, it saved my life. Because like I said, I was depressed. When I got to Dallas, Texas, and I was struggling to pay and go to barber school, I had a moment where I literally said, man, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't have to worry about these bills and this gas, and my stomach wouldn't be touching my back right now. So for me, I never was at that point where I felt like I would do something to myself, but the thought alone was enough for me to know, man, this is real. But after that thought, the next thought was, but I got to go to barber school tomorrow.
That's what's up.
That's what kept me going.
Something to keep you driving. That's what's up. It
kept me dry. It drove me, and it got me to a much healthier place in life. I've seen places, met people, and done things that I don't know if I would have been to those places had it not been for the craft of barbering.
This is the only thing that I've done outside love my family and friends that I get up day in and day out and look forward to doing the next day.
No matter how tired you are.
Real talk.
No matter how bad my back is hurting, I still want to go cut.
Man, it's a wonderful feeling. So for me, I just have one more question, Jinx, if there's anything that you can think of. If not, it's all good, because my mouth gonna run. I got a question that I started asking with our last guest we had. Shout out to P Skills out of Lafayette, Louisiana, P Skills _337, man. If you're not familiar with him, man, check him out. Super dope barber, man.
P Skills. Okay.
Yeah, P Skills _337. We had him on. He'll be dropping this coming up week. But I just started, I had a question one day, and I was thinking to myself, I said, man, I think this would be a dope question for every barber. Can you tell me, if there was one person from any era that you could have in your chair to cut at least once, who would that person be and why?
One. It got to be one, right?
Just one person.
Well, you
Two
can
specific
have
people
two,
came
three,
to mind. If I would say this, if I could have,
I got you. I ain't trying to hijack your question.
Okay,
yeah,
so yeah, maybe I can have
one.
just one of them. If I could have one person in my chair
from any era.
Man, it's hard to pick one of these two gentlemen. It would either be Malcolm or Martin, right? It would be one of them because I really want to know what did y'all talk about in that conversation.
Hey, and it's funny because this is the second Malcolm in a row.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, dude. Last week said Malcolm, and
either one of them.
And I'm gonna say what I said last week. Malcolm had a good head of hair, but his lining could use some crispiness.
Man, both of them, to be honest.
Right.
Okay, I'm glad I ain't alone.
That thing to the back. Both of them could have used some help. I got it. Absolutely. Dude, I got a barber cake with Martin on it, and it's like Martin with a crispy fade and a beard. It's hilarious.
Wow. It's just, man, it was just something for me out of the box because I often think about all the great people that influence us and that we are able to take from, even with a lot of them not being here anymore. And it was just like, man, that's a hard question. You know what I mean? Because it's so many. Man, this is for me, and I'm sure I can speak for Jinx, man. This has been an amazing interview. I love to have us on here because as barbers, as brothers, as you know, we've had a female barber, and we're looking to get more of those as well. But it just shines a light on us in other areas because we're so much more than barbers. We're well spoken, we're insightful, we're thoughtful. Man, everything that we're supposed to be. And like you said, we're in an era now where it's kind of like hip hop. Remember the producer, used to be in the background all the time. And you only seen the person with the mic rapping, not knowing how much work, the producers were putting in and how knowledgeable they were. We are to this world what a producer is to the music industry. And we out here in front, man, and we deserve it. And it's just gonna keep growing, man. And we're doing our part with this platform to keep shining the light, on our industry. And everybody, I don't care where you come from, everybody can relate to a barbershop experience. Definitely. Man, we again, I Cut My Way Out podcast, man, and this has been an amazing interview, man. We greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all, and I really want to take the opportunity to take my hat off to you gentlemen for having me on the show. This is the first time anybody ever asked me to be interviewed on the podcast or anything like this, so I really appreciate it. I get a kick, and I really love to be able to answer those questions and tell, because for me, this is also a mode of education.
Absolutely.
In the industry, and that we need more of. And it's like everybody want to talk about fades and cuts, and that's cool, but it's a lot of other stuff that we need to talk about in this industry. So I really appreciate you guys for coming with this podcast and having little old me on here, because I ain't really that nobody ain't no man that big of a barber.
man, dig this. Everybody is somebody to us, man.
To us, yeah.
Big or small, man. And my man said, and I'll let him go ahead and say, put his spin on it, man. You, if you would, Jinx.
I've always said we appreciate all our guests, and we done had some amazing guests. Mm-hmm. And this will be our 14th or 15th episode.
Wow.
And we thank brothers like yourself, because you might be supporting us when it may not be the most popular thing to do. It may not be popular to support us right now, but once we keep building this thing, it's not if, it's when. It's gonna be popular to support us. But brothers like yourself and some of our past barbers have supported us when it ain't been the most popular. So for that, we definitely thank you. I'm in Champaign, Illinois, but I'm a diehard Michigan football, basketball fan. So
Go Blue, baby.
Oh man, yeah.
Yes,
so we
sir.
So we got some work to do on the football front, but Jawan got that thing rolling.
Yes,
And
sir.
you said King High School. I know King done sent some players to UM in the past. So I think I got to do I want to say between Cass Tech and King and a couple other schools, they done been good to us. So
yeah, not Cass so much. That's
I know
our
that's
rival.
the uppity
They're
school,
like our
right?
Ohio State, but we ain't got to talk about them
Yeah,
now. But good school
yeah.
either way. Both great schools, man.
But yeah, so man, I mean, I would like to get in the future, definitely, Lord's will, definitely continue this and do a part 2, man, because like you said,
I'm glad you said that because we never touched on COVID.
Absolutely.
I mean,
right.
we can.
You're right.
Okay, well,
Well,
yeah.
my wife is she texted me like you done talking yet? So we're gonna need to part 2.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
And it just opens it up. And you made a statement, and I'm gonna go out on this when you said, little old you and Barber, man, understand that everybody that we bring to this platform inspires us to do what we do. You know what I'm saying? I went across, and it's funny because I brought this in here because I had a client, and when I first started following you, I'm like, like you talked about, I cut my way out the words, but I had a client sitting, and he was just coming up with phrases, and you probably
your background,
you can't see it.
Yeah,
my
because your
background won't let you see it. But I'm gonna shoot you. Matter of fact, I'm going to just hit me offline. Send me your address and send me your size because I do t-shirts. I have an apparel company, Beard Culture Apparel and Products, and one of the shirts that had a logo made. It says confidence provided. And so when I went across your page, I'm like, that's sweet. It hit the same, it means the same thing. I had a young dude sitting in my chair, and he came up with a couple phrases, and I said, man, look, those some dope phrases, man, I got to use it. And one of those was confidence provided, because that's what we do. And so when I seen that page, I'm like, man, I said, that brother right on. And it was just a dope name. So I just want to send you the shirt. The logo is dope. The meaning behind it, man, and that's what you do. And man, we appreciate your service to the industry and what you do, man.
Definitely, man. I appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna shoot that information to you. And then you sparking something in me. I got a clothing line in me that I need to go ahead and start capitalizing on and start being lazy. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
That's what's up.
Right, because if we didn't capitalize, fam, the name of our show might have been jacked.
You're right. Yeah. Yes, sir, man.
I create _confidence.
Yes, sir.
On IG, go to his page. I know you're gonna do double takes at some of the clients and be like, "No, that ain't real," but it's real. You done put that time, effort, energy, money into his craft, so we're not gonna do that. This man has definitely put that time in, and he deserves that respect. So,
absolutely.
Like I said, I'm bald. If I renew my vows or something, I might have to take a drive to give you
Come on down. I got you. You're gonna be crispy, man.
Yes, sir.
That's what's up, man.
But yeah, like I said earlier, this I Cut My Way Out podcast, everywhere where you can listen to podcasts, most notably Apple Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart. Just put us in the Google search. You'll find us, and YouTube. We getting closer to our 100 subscribers, so we can change our URL. We're at 97, so we getting close. So just one step at a time. Just keep growing this thing. So again, thank you. At I create _confidence, Suge the Barber, straight out of Detroit.
Yes,
what up, though?
What up, though?
All right. Well, we appreciate it, man. You have a wonderful evening. Tell your wife thank you for allowing us to have this time to chop it up with you, and share this with the world, my brother.
Don't forget the shout outs.
Oh, I got you.
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
No, so for me, I always close it out. Thank you for reminding me. Suge, I always make sure I close out by thanking Andy's, Babliss, Wall, Oyster. Formos Grooming, Caliber Pro, everybody who makes it possible for us to do what we do. We couldn't cut our way out if we didn't have the tools to do so, man.
That's right.
Bevel, everybody. I just always give a shout out. So I'm a clipper junkie, and I'm thankful for them tools because it's made a difference in our lives, man.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. All right.
All right. Well, until next time, peace.
Peace out.
All right.
Hard times, my mom had to do it all. Working 2 jobs to provide while I pursue the ball. Hoop dreams, no problem doing my own thing. Stepped in the world to get a win for the home team. Laced the sneakers for the crowd in the bleachers. This might get away from the lesson life teaches, but 5'9" don't follow the league guideline. Heart of a champ, but I gotta tuck my pride now. Off to college for the knowledge, try my hand at math. But one call from back home really changed my path. My firstborn, now I got a mouth to feed. Told the Southeast I got a whole new route to lead. Young father, odd jobs, every day is real. Turn to the streets to try to eat or maybe pay a bill. Not proud of it, but I got it cooking good. But prison time on the mind wasn't looking good. I can't afford the price, so I tried the corporate life. Something wasn't sitting right, every night I'm tossing light. They don't appreciate all my hard work, so I went ahead and jumped, let the Lord work. Beer culture 2020, yeah, we taking over. From the clippers to the hoodies that be draping over. I put the clippers in my hand. I got a whole different plan. I gotta see how this play out. Hoping that it pay out. Trying to cut my way out. Yeah, I put the clippers in my hand. I got a whole different plan. I gotta see how this play out. Hoping that it pay out. Trying to cut my way out.